Two tiny specks on a grainy photograph, now the centre of a huge international search. 29 aircraft, 18 ships and 6 helicopters are now looking for one missing plane and the 269 people on board. Military aircraft have been sent out from the Australian coast west, deep into the Indian Ocean. Their job to find the pieces of debris on those satellite images. The largest is 24 metres long. The lead is said to be credible.
Becomes protected.
At a news conference, Malaysia's Defence Minister had something solid to report for the first time in days.
Jim Reid from the BBC. Minister, you keep using the word credible. Could you explain what makes it so different?
So right now, the information that we have received from the Australian authorities was actually corroborated to a certain extent from other satellites. This is something that we can bring our ships across. This is something that the two Prime Ministers spoke to. That makes it slightly different from the earlier lead.
It's at Malaysia's main naval base that search vessels are being sent out, down to what's known as the Southern Corridor, the vast swathe of ocean where satellite readings show flight MH370 may well have been heading.
A military radar station up the coast from here picks up one of the last signals from MH370 as it left Malaysian airspace and flew west across the Malacca Strait. 2 weeks after that plane went missing, this country is still looking for answers. Malaysia's ruling party, in power without a break since 1955, is not used to this kind of pressure, this kind of scrutiny, both from the international community and from its own citizens.
It's in large cities with a tech-literate population that the government response to this is really being tested. Malaysian newspapers and TV stations are heavily regulated or controlled by allies of the government.
Often if I have time, I go through the hashtags.
But millions of young Malaysians are getting their news in other ways these days. On blogs and on Twitter, people are free to report what they want.
Because there's a general distrust, I think there's been a lot of media coverage about how inefficient the government has been, how slow it's been and things, that people have kind of latched onto that rhetoric as well, to kind of use it to kind of go, oh, you know, they might be lying, are they hiding something and stuff. So that kind of things on top of speculation, that kind of accusations are also coming out, and it's everywhere on the internet.
That all came to a head this week when Chinese relatives of missing passengers tried to storm the daily news conference and were dragged away by security. The Malaysian government has been repeatedly accused of wasting valuable time and announcing crucial details only to U-turn completely the next day. Just this evening, British satellite operator Inmarsat said there were strong indications 10 days ago that the Boeing 777 would be found either in the southern part of the Indian Ocean or in Central Asia, and not in the seas around Malaysia, where a wild goose chase continued for at least 2 days after that information was passed on.
Ministers here in Malaysia say no other country has had to deal with a situation like this before. A source close to the government told us the Western media is simply biased against the developing world, and the level of criticism is, in his words, below the belt. The most influential opposition figure in Malaysian politics is currently facing a 5-year jail term. Anwar Ibrahim claims long-standing charges of sodomy, still technically illegal here, are politically motivated.
The manner they dealt with the MH370 episode just confirmed what we have been saying for decades.
Which is?
Which is that this poor governance, authoritarian, and will use anything just to stifle the opposition.
Is there a danger that many people in Malaysia are going to look at this and think you're exploiting this tragedy for political gains?
But I'm sharing information to help. What else do you expect me to do? To say it's okay, they're handling it brilliantly, but you know the facts are to prove otherwise. Things have to change. I strongly urged the government last week in Parliament to say, please, just acknowledge your faults and move on. Release the information. Apologize for the shortcomings.
But this situation also offers an insight into the nuances of diplomacy and power in modern Southeast Asia. 153 of the passengers on board flight MH370 are from mainland China. In Kuala Lumpur's Petaling district, the threat by relatives of those missing passengers to go on hunger strike is front-page news.
The links between Malaysia and China are both long-standing and strong. They're major trading partners, and a quarter of all Malaysians are ethnic Chinese. The plane's disappearance might have started as something that united the two countries. As time has gone on, that relationship has become more and more strained.
The Chinese ambassador was using very undiplomatic language this week, complaining of chaos and rumours, making it impossible to think.
I think what you saw was that the Chinese government was under tremendous pressure, especially in the Chinese social media space. I think with the young Chinese people nowadays, they realize that China is a growing power, and what they couldn't understand was that why didn't the Chinese government put more pressure, being a regional power, on a small country like Malaysia to do more in terms of the search and rescue operations. That's one side.
Search planes will soon make a new attempt to reach the suspicious debris floating somewhere in the Indian Ocean. If and when the objects do turn out to be the missing airliner, then attention turns to another, perhaps bigger question. What exactly happened to flight MH370?